Hey Josh, so thanks for getting this in, and I know you're not going to like what I have to say here, so I apologize in advance, but in my defense I had to say this to another student as well, and the news for you is slightly better. These are actually still lifes. The assignment calls for a view of a room, you know, to the extent that your millimeter length lens will allow. I'm going to accept this because you have a lot of shots in here of much larger portions of the room, and I know how difficult it can be to photograph an entire room. There's only one room in my house. Even with my widest angle lens, there's only one room in my house that's big enough for me to actually get wall-to-wall shots. So I'll accept it, but I just want to point out on a technicality that these are actually still lifes. These are not really giving us a sense of your ability to solve the lighting problems inherent to the available light in the room. And this one's out of focus, actually. This is definitely not a file size problem because we resolved that. It's just kind of out of focus. Or it's downloading improperly. So, you know, I'll let you know. I'll download it again after I finish this because that's the only file that's like that. So it might be a tricky PDF thing because I'm seeing some weird line right there that shouldn't be there. That looks like a visual aberration left over from a digital confusion. So it might not actually be. I'll look at it again later. But this one is in focus. Anyways, so what you have here is, in your case, I totally skipped over that equipment shot. In your case, you're really close. Unlike many of the people that have I've looked at already, your light is very close to your subject matter compared to other people that are doing this assignment. So you're not casting as hard of shadows as many people are, because we can see down here this light is being cast by your additional tungsten light there, and it's a little hard, but it's also kind of gradiated. You know, it's sort of a medium hard light quality. It's not as hard as I've seen in a lot of them. And a lot of that is because this tiny space is actually working in your favor to produce a rather soft quality light, because your light is pretty close to your subject matter, therefore it's relatively larger than your subject matter, and it's casting softer shadows, as we can see here and here. Of course, I know this thing is tiny, and that's part of it too, but you know, it's not as hard as I'm seeing in some other assignments. And it's very flat too, because it's not, you know, it's not directional in this case, because it's probably the light is very close. Yeah, it's very close to where you're actually shooting from. So it's almost coming from right where the camera is at. So it's just the shadows are hidden. So that's a very good technical choice. Hiding the shadows, or at least allowing them to fall on things that are you know, textured so they're not as obvious, is a really good technical choice. You know, and going through the compositions you were able to get with even with your wide-angle lens, you probably did choose your best composition. And so I think you're right. I think you might have had better results with the ceiling light on and a shorter exposure. Because these are, you know, you went from having like a really like mysterious quality of light to having a very bright and flat quality of light. So that's a big shift. It'll be interesting for you in the future. You know, I know you didn't get to do it with this assignment, but in the future, to get your equipment into a bigger room, you know, with more architectural features and angles and furniture to work with, and see if you can do that. See if you can use all of your lights and your bounces and your flags and your reflectors to solve a lot of lighting problems. Because this room, you know, is already pretty well lit, you know, just with the overhead light. That overhead light reaches pretty much every little nook and cranny of the room. So, you know, so there wasn't a lot of problems to solve here. And that's about my feedback. I think it's just this room really didn't pose you with the technical problems that would have been more interesting to solve, I think. And it really, like I said, you know, you didn't have a whole lot of options. I think they're like really on a using your tools level. The only other thing I would have recommended is maybe taking the softbox off of this entirely, and then just taking the hard light and, you know, pointing it up towards the ceiling and letting it bounce, use the entire ceiling as a bounce, and then seeing what kind of quality of light you got then. Because you might have found that you got slightly more interesting shadows or something. If you're still going to choose these still lives, you might have had a less flat light with something a little bit more interesting going on than you do here with just this big softbox. And I actually have yet to see you shoot without a softbox. I'm curious if you are interested in qualities of light other than soft. Let me know, because you always shoot with a softbox. So anyways, so that's my feedback. I'm gonna accept this, even though your two finals are of still life. I'm wondering where the third final is. Is it in here and I'm just missing it? Let me make sure it's not out of order. No, 1, 2. No, it's not, definitely not in here. So you would have you really need to pick a third final, and just either tell us which one it is or attach an enlarged JPEG. Actually, why don't you just go ahead and post an enlarged JPEG of the third final before tomorrow night, let's say, and then so we can just look at that and know what you intended your third one to be. Okay, thanks, Josh.